We are all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the king of podcasts.
Dun, 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 dun. Olympic time. And what other spectator sports can there be in Paris going on right now as the Olympics are ongoing as we speak? The first week is going on as I record this episode of The Praise and Debaucherous. Sex work. Yes, the overnight Olympic sport of champions of real depraved and debaucherous folks. That's ongoing right now. So here's the story. Here we go. If you didn't know this fun fact, around 40,000 women, the overwhelming majority of women, sell or are exploited for sex in France, according to government and charity estimates. So you already know that there was already a built-in carousel of women for guys or gals, whoever, don't want to go ahead and imbibe some depravity and debauchery by picking up a prostitute or two or an escort. So that's going on right now as we speak. So Arab News spoke with someone in Paris who actually is a 55-year-old undocumented Chinese sex worker. Okay, I gotta read that again. I'm trying to picture that in my head. A 55-year-old undocumented Chinese sex worker in Paris. Okay. Well, we get the first person account from this person who's going by the name of Hua. And she says, quote, "I really feel under pressure. I'm constantly scared. Every day there are police checks. So I go out less and less to work." Now, just for the record, in France, if you are listening to this and you are imbibing in the Olympics, under French law, selling sex is allowed, but it is illegal to exploit someone or pay for sex, placing the criminal responsibility on pimps and clients. So the Johns can get picked up for buying a sex worker for sex, or the pimp, or the mama-san, whatever you want, right? So it's more complicated if the sex worker is undocumented. Now, this 55-year-old undocumented Chinese sex worker in Paris is also a divorcee. She came to France 7 years ago hoping to earn a decent wage as a domestic cleaner and has been diagnosed with breast cancer. This just gets much more complicated. All right, try this again. 55-year-old undocumented Chinese sex worker in Paris, divorced, fled her bad life, I guess, with the husband that she was with or whoever she was with. Yeah. Came to Paris to be a domestic cleaner and diagnosed with breast cancer. That's wow. And the reason she's here, unfortunately, is that if they arrest me, quote, I'll be sent back to China and they won't give me medical care over there. Wow. Now, she was spoken with at the Médecins du Monde, Doctors of the World charity in the northeastern Paris neighborhood of Belleville. Listen, this is sad. This is totally sad. She broke down in tears, quote, "I don't understand. What have we ever done to anybody?" She sells her services to nicer clients for just 20 euros, $21 American, because they don't have money and neither do I, end quote. And then they talk about, in another part of Paris, there's a street famous for the sex trade near the city center. And they spoke to Marlene Just, who's on the lookout for clients. She says she was most bothered by new security rules limiting pedestrian and traffic movement around Paris. She's a 50-year-old sex worker, and she's been sex working for 22 years. Wow. Much older, mature sex workers in Paris. I see. She says, quote, "I don't think the tourists walking by will be leaping on us, so we're getting out of here." Ahead of the opening ceremony along the River Seine for the fortnight-long sport fiesta that took place on Friday, sex workers like Hua and Just all but disappeared from their usual Paris haunts. But with most sex trade online these days, police battling sexual exploitation are also focusing their efforts there. Clients go to a website, tick a category, price and time, and it's like ordering food online, except it's girls who are delivered, asking to remain anonymous because of the nature of their job. So Médecins du Monde tries to support sex workers virtually. They recently saw more than 46,000 ads in a single evening on one popular website. 46,000 sex workers. And through the charity's Jasmine Project, since 2019, sex workers have been reported tens of thousands of risky or dangerous clients in a bid to warn others about them. There's a lot more they talk about here that they speculate that high-end prostitution could be on the rise with all the wealthy visitors that were expected. Well, that normally does happen. So there's a big boxing match in Vegas. If it's New Year's, even New York, yes, you're going to see this kind of stuff going on. Okay? The level of debauchery and depravity in the strip clubs and the massage parlors and on the streets will be much more rampant and infested. Trust me, I know, because if you ever come to the Super Bowl when it's been in Miami, it's just like that. Your choice of whatever kind of depravity and debauchery that you want is available at a major sporting event. So the Olympics, notwithstanding. But this is a problem that gets a little bit more in depth because of the fact that there is a lot of prostitution issues in France, and they don't have an answer for this. And also the fact there's a lot of undocumented people there, and how many of them are in sex work and they're not safe. And how much is the sex trafficking? That's the other part too. Interesting story here that there's a worry about an increase in minors being abused in recent years, including vulnerable young girls from the state care system. That some 20,000 minors are sexually exploited in France, according to rights group acting against the prostitution of children. A court in May jailed 5 men over paying for sexual acts with a 12-year-old girl. A rare instance of such case in making it to trial. She was pimped after she ran away from home. It's sad to see this, but it is becoming something we're learning about. And there's more to this as well that talks about the same thing. So another story comes from Freedom United, which is a advocacy site for letting end modern slavery together. So they're really big about that. And they talked about that the 2024 Olympic Games had been preparing with French authorities engaged in what could be described as a social cleansing effort. With no regard for their well-being, French police cracked down on those who were deemed undesirable for the image Paris would like projected on the world stage. So it's immigrants, asylum seekers, homeless individuals, and sex workers. So we already knew this was going to go on. Listen, I'm not going to talk politics here. Okay, I'm an apolitical show. But one of the issues is that, so normally Paris is kind of a very, infested kind of town. And there are a lot of things that are, as they said, undesirable. Well, it's there full time, except for the 2 weeks that the Olympics are in town. And that's where Paris thinks, well, this is going to help their tourism by trying to go and clean things up. So again, we don't want immigrants, asylum seekers, homeless individuals, and sex workers. And I feel bad if sex workers are being put in the same category. Just that's sad. The repression first approach of the French state only harms the most vulnerable and has the obvious consequences for the safety of sex workers. Freedom United rejects the approach and further rejects the conflation of sex work and trafficking, which the police hide behind to target sex workers. Right. That's the part of learning about this as well, that we are seeing that, not having any regard or dignity for those people, for all of them in general. But there's one thing about those that are coming into the country that are immigrants, asylum seekers, or homeless individuals. It's one thing where it's kind of by choice they are where they're at. But the sex workers, I don't think it's so much. And I believe that maybe the sex workers might be a little more, might have gone through some more things which has resorted them to be where they are at on the streets of Paris. Just saying. So over the past 14 months, more than 13,000 people have been forcibly relocated. Now, France adopted the Nordic model in 2016 for sex work, decriminalizing public solicitation of sexual services while penalizing the clients. So they rather would go after the Johns and the pimps than the actual sex workers themselves. The first 6 months of 2024, various organizations aiding sex workers noted a rise in documentation checks. These increased controls allow authorities to target these women as undocumented foreigners, and they cannot be penalized for their sex work. The conflation of trafficking and prostitution has further exacerbated the situation. Authorities launched extensive projects to combat what they perceive as an inevitable rise of trafficking or sex work during large-scale events like the Olympics. And advocates say that the myth of a rise in prostitution during major sporting events like the Olympics is not only false, but has been used to justify increased surveillance and social control measures. This notion originated in the 2004 Athens Games and persists today despite substantial evidence to the contrary. Yeah, it happens. Let's quit denying that it doesn't. So the myth persists, and with it, the stricter enforcement of solicitation laws and intensified public operations targeting sex workers, ruining the public areas. Rather than protecting anyone from trafficking, these actions have been pushing sex workers into more dangerous and hidden situations, heightening the risk of exploitation, violence, and trafficking. But what you're doing right now is by alienating the sex workers, you're taking them away from applying their trade. Because then where are you going to put them in part of town? Like, you're moving them all away. Well, it's on them if they want to go ahead and work the streets or work, wherever kind of brothels or whatever kind of situations online where they can go ahead and attract visitors to go in and, enjoy some fun. That's what it is. Now, I would like the focus not being so much on the sex workers, but it would be more on those that are being trafficked and they are being forced into it. That's the part that needs to be, there's voluntary, but there's forced. And there needs to be something to be said about where law enforcement needs to go ahead and go after the trafficking part. But then if the sex workers, you know what? They're there to make a living. So if they can, and they keep it off the streets, then there you go. Like if they want to keep it online, they probably could do that too. And as we talked about when it comes to sports and the fact that we are seeing more and more sex work going on rampantly during sporting events, let's just make the point. 3 weeks ago, we had Euro 2024, the major European soccer tournament that was going on in Germany. And there were estimates that went on during this time, according to Euronews.com, that 14,000 additional sex workers arrived in Germany in the host cities for the tournament. Yeah, 14,000. So more than 100,000 sex workers have been operating in the country of Germany since the start of Euro 2024. So that's over like about a month or so, I think it was. I forget how long it was, the whole tournament. I think it was about a month or so or a couple of weeks. But the erotic service Arabella says that almost 14,000 sex workers travel to Germany specifically for the football tournament. Soccer, for those that didn't know. And most of them come from Bulgaria, Romania, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Poland. And this is according to a social worker based in Frankfurt, Gerhard Schönborn. They sell themselves, quote, here simply because of poverty. So for those of you guys out there, you want to go find your next depraved and debaucherous trip, then the European soccer tournaments, you get your choice of Bulgarians, Romanians, Slovakians, Czechs, and Polish. That's quite a menu to choose from. Jean Valentin, a sex worker who's been in the industry for 26 years, note that. Very nice way of putting that, Euronews. Says it's easy to find clients in central Berlin. Quote, guests staying in hotels buy escort services when they want dinner company, or they call and ask a girl to their hotel room. Now, prostitution has been legal in Germany since 2002, including brothel keeping, which now requires registration and licensing under new laws. However, HIV and STI testing is not mandatory for operating such businesses, according to the Global Network of Sex Work Projects. This isn't the same place where they had the sex bus, right? The bus stops. What was that? What was it I talked about before? Was it Poland or was it Germany that had the sex bus stops? And you could rent those out for an hour or whatever it was. It's amazing. But look at that. That is incredible. That much goes on. I mean, if I decide to go and do something on Gemini, just ask about, well, you know what? Not Gemini, because for whatever reason, Gemini on Google does not want to give me anything about, various subjects. So politics won't let me give any information about, or anything sexual in nature. They also won't give me anything about as well. They just kind of deny it. So let's see. Prostitution during major sporting events. Let's see if there's anything that pops up out of Chat GPT that tells me about that. What are the numbers? And we're going to get the generation right now and see what they actually say here out of this. And it's doing a search. And so they say that there is extensive debate, according to ChatGPT. And here's some of the numbers that they have. So some studies have shown a rise in the volume of online sex ads during major sporting events. So back when Backpage.com used to be around, the Super Bowl that was in New Jersey area. Okay, actually, here we go. It increased significantly in host cities during the event period. Phoenix ad volume rose 30% from 2014 to 2015. And New York, New Jersey area, when the Super Bowl was there, it surged by 57.6% during the Super Bowl period. So misconceptions about human trafficking often blur the lines between consensual sex work and forced labor. Trafficking encompasses a number of broad activities, a broad range, not limited to sex work, but also including forced labor, industries like agriculture, domestic service, and more. Efforts to combat trafficking should focus on addressing underlying issues such as poverty and discrimination, which increase the vulnerability to exploitation. But remember, there's a lot more poverty right now. There's a lot more people on the streets because, inflation has gone rampant across all these different countries in Europe and other places, and has never been rectified. So there's that part to deal with. And then what about the part where some of the women that are caught up in this whole sex trade as well, where they're being brought in from Africa, or it's happening from where you have things happening from Europe? Story that coming from the Guardian about cocaine bound for European ports, flooding the cities of Agadez and Niger. Female migrants are the most common victims in a growing addiction crisis. There's a lot being said about that. That women have been trapped in sex work in the Niger city of Agadez, finding the way to blot out the pain of what their lives have become, using crack cocaine. So it's funny. Europe is like so depraved in its own way because of the fact that, you have the women that are there going through the sex trade, and then, Europe sending out drugs to Niger and Africa, and the women are getting caught into being addicted to crack cocaine, and also finding themselves trapped in a cycle of sex work, drugs, and debt. This is horrible. And this is an interesting story. So women being held by traffickers in houses where men pass by and use them. And according to a Nigerian development organization in Agadez, they say, quote, when they have paid a debt that these women have or passed on to another trafficker, there's transportation debt that they're being charged with, and they have to pay it off through sex trafficking. And so women are caught in a cycle of dependence on earning money from sex work and drug use to block out the nightmares. And that there's a recent increase in the amount of cocaine in Niger, blaming for the addiction crisis. And that European politicians obsess about stopping migrants, but they've shown little interest in addressing the impacts of Europeans' own cocaine addiction in transit countries and communities like Agadez and Niger. Look at that. All this right here. Europe is like so rampant and so attached to the sex trade. And so no wonder what's going on in Paris is happening like it is. It's saddening to see that, but it's true. And nobody's saying anything about it. But it's fascinating to go and see that we're seeing this issue right now and what can be done. But, it's like Paris doesn't want to accept the fact that, you let Paris go to the ground in the first place. And then you have to go and move everybody around. And what happens? Do they all get to come back? Eventually come back after the Olympics are done? Like, the thing is that you're not really doing much to help anything at all. I mean, how many people do you think that go to the Olympics, that might go to the Olympics? I mean, think about the guys that want to go. They're probably going there because, it's a major sporting event. And while they're, out there having fun, spending time with the girls, spending money out there, what's the chance they want to go and find some strange on the street or, find them online? And they know that, there's a lot of workers coming out. And then what about the girls that have made the trip to Paris to go do that? I mean, we should know and identify the ones that are sex workers, because what about the women that are going there to Paris to go have some fun? And, when the guys are out there and they can't find anybody that's like, a pro that's out there to go spend time with, they're going to try to go after the next best thing, try to find the girls that are out there rampant, might be tourists, and think, well, they're not going to get in trouble if they try to do something fun with them, which is not going to be fun for them. Just saying. I mean, it got to the point where TMZ reported on it. Come on now. That's wild. But we definitely have seen it now. Now, the press office for the police prefecture told TMZ that authorities are doing what they can to combat illegal sex work, and checkpoints under the road operations are targeted to try and put a stop to the pimping in the Bois de Vincennes, Bois de Boulogne, and Belleville sectors. So if you guys are looking for where to go, that's where you have to go. A former brigade known as the BRP has formed, and they're being told, TMZ is being told that they're making their presence known to the area. There's also a group in charge of surveilling night establishments such as cabarets, where anti-sex work laws will be reinforced. So once again, we're hearing the same thing here, that the increase in police presence may be released to residents and tourists, but several nonprofit organizations, speaking on behalf of sex workers, say that the repression-first mindset has a negative impact on the sex workers' health and safety. Their livelihoods are at stake. The organizations also defend that sex workers aren't flocking to Paris amid the Olympics, as accommodations have become too expensive for them to reside there. Yeah. But there's not, I mean, I'm sure there's probably hostels and things like that where they can try to stay at, or your Airbnbs, who knows what there is. Because people need to make money some way and somehow, and that's what they got to go and do. So as we heard, repression first, and that there are sex workers that have been left terrified by the arrival of the games. News.com.au reports on this. The build of the games coincided with a key ruling by the Strasbourg-based European Court of Human Rights. And on Thursday, they issued that France's criminalizing clients of sex workers did not violate the European Convention on Human Rights. And that ruling disappointed some rights groups that argue France's policy only increases stigmatization of sex workers. And a women and LGBT rights researcher at Human Rights Watch says, quote, criminalization increases physical attacks, sexual violence, and police abuse of people who sell sex while having no demonstrable effect on the eradication of human trafficking. And the French authorities are anticipating gangs from promoting women from Brazil, Colombia, and Paraguay will continue to advertise during the games. Yeah, so what could very well be happening is that you might have the cartels that might be making their way up to bring their women up there to go have some fun. So, among other things, that's what's going on right now. So what do you do about it? I mean, there's never been an answer for these kind of events happening and what goes on with some of these women. They're not being handled, they're being taken care of. For them to be just shuffled around to another city or another area where, it's not safe for them, that doesn't help either. Should be some consideration for those that are there making a living and living in Paris all the time, and not just the tourists that'll be here for a couple of weeks and will be gone before you know it. It's a sad state of affairs. Let's just say it like that. It is very sad to see that. There's one other story I want to bring up before we wrap things up for tonight, and that was a story that came out from Wired.com talking about TikTok's fruity boy trend. So TikTok and X, there's the fruity boyfriend has become a hot topic. A trend exposing real issues that arise when dating apps reduce everyone to an archetype. Yeah, we've had rat boyfriends and we've had brat girl summer and all these different things that are going on. And it's happening a lot. So now fruity boys are considered the new soft boys. This is the latest in a long line of similar monikers going back to metrosexual, trying to identify a new archetype. A man who's usually straight who possesses a set of nebulously feminine or queerish qualities or a zesty aura is considered a fruity boy, or the new soft boys. Yeah. There's a story from Days.com that a writer reported about that said that these guys are suddenly catnip on the meat market, enumerating the social and political reasons why women are drawn to them, that they are thought to be softer and safer than their macho counterparts. That's another thing we got to talk about that too, right? So they talk about the summer's rodent men, and men yearning to have a brat summer or experiment with outre pant widths. Though exposes something deeper into the gender discourse, the troubling ways dating apps have reduced everyone involved to archetypes. So dating apps right now are reducing and sorting people into boxes to check, training users to value a set of important but superficial qualities, mostly physical features, certain interests and jobs. An algorithm repeating serves user matches that align with other qualities, and in ways, apps resemble consumer platforms where people are the products that you are shopping for. It's like shopping for purses. Are you more Chanel? Are you more Marc Jacobs? And it what is this word again? She says reifies. Oh my goodness, that's a Scrabble word. By packaging people as brands. Brands are coherent, people are not. And the logic of marketing dictates that dating apps commodify people into legible archetypes for an easy sale. And that they reduce a complex person to just a 2D profile with a couple of specific qualities that together might not give you a true sense, who they actually are, and who you're going to be meeting. So when someone goes on a dating app swiping until they match akin to the boyfriends being paraded on TikTok, they end up disappointed because that person's offline personality doesn't perfectly match their online archetype. Don't you believe it. Don't get caught up in that. Another weird story of among other things that are going on. But there we go. That's the story for all of this tonight. Olympic sport. And the thing is, Paris doing such a great job. But, well, here's the thing I got to make mention of. Because maybe you should be careful, about what women you could meet out on the street or online. I mean, obviously, some of you might have seen that opening ceremony, on the Olympics on the Friday night that started it all off, right? Hey, there could be some guys that, that are either transsexual or have gotten the sex change. And you know what? maybe the guys who were there, you weren't expecting to go ahead and find a woman who actually was a man at one point. And you wouldn't want to meet one of those people that were sitting around that table as part of the opening ceremony. So maybe, just maybe, you'll be a little careful at the Olympics, or any sporting event for that matter, when you go find sometimes to be a little depraved and debaucherous.